thanks for coming, both of you. Look, other people might turn up as we go, and I was just saying to Pierre that I think I'll record this as well, so that then we can share it with others, and because I know there's a few people who weren't able to come, who said that it's just completely the wrong time for them. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I thought I might just run through a few notes that I've put together about the different projects that we're working with at the moment, and then maybe just come back in and have a bit of a talk about the kind of help that we're looking for, and any ideas that you have, and any ways that you think you might be able to help as well. So I might just dive into, now let me first of all start screen sharing. Just make sure I get this all right. Here we go. Okay, so I think you can see my screen now.
Can I close the thing that says video preview with my ugly mug on it?
You can collapse it. If you go up to the top of it, you should be able to collapse it. There's an option to have, like, it says a little bit one or multiple faces. Can you see how to do that at the top? If you hover over it. That's the only thing I know how to do that. Or you can move it to another spot. It's always a bit frustrating, isn't it, when it gets in the way? All right. She's collapsed her own. But okay. All right. So hi, welcome.
Hi. Sorry, Meg.
That's all right, Izzy. I was just going to start talking a little bit about all the different projects that we've got going on, and then come back in to have a chat with you all about any ideas that you have about ways to support this, and any ways that you feel that you could contribute to that as well. So, so the Permaculture Education Institute is directly linked with an organisation called the Ethos Foundation. And the Ethos Foundation is a registered charity. It's registered in Australia. It doesn't have DGR status, but it is a registered charity. So it's completely audited as every year as an organisation that has sort of, what do they call that, transparency. So most of the work in the last little while with the Ethos Foundation has been going for quite some time, but in recent years, its main focus has been about supporting people to access permaculture education where they would not have any access otherwise. So one of the main focuses that I've been working with supporting, actually, Barb, if you wouldn't mind just muting. Is that okay? Would you able to mute? Oh, that's all right. That's okay.
I'm on my iPad and I can't seem to do anything.
Oh no, that's all right. It's different, isn't it? Yeah, that's okay.
I'll try and be quiet.
No, it's just the sound of it shuffling around more than itself. But anyway, that's okay.
If you mouse over the top of it, you'll have the mute button up there.
I haven't got a mouse. I'm on an iPad.
Well, just touch at the top. There should come a bar down.
Ah.
I love
I'm on an iPad too.
Yeah, I love how we learn new bits of our devices and applications every time we get together. I'm still learning new things about Zoom. I found the other day that you can actually you could create breakout rooms. I knew that. And I knew that you could sort of either do it manually, or you could plan people to go different places, or you could make everyone co-hosts, and then they can choose which room they want to go to and keep swapping from room to room, kind of like an open space thing. I thought that was very cool. Anyway, I would learn new things about Zoom all the time. So anyway, the Ethos Foundation, what I have been focusing on in the last while is really around permaculture education, but mostly with women's groups and with young people. So this is one of the groups I've been working with for a while, and you've probably seen this photo before. This is the women's group in a little village in Kambiri near Kakamega, which is in the western part of Kenya. So these women, mostly grandmothers, pretty much organize permaculture education. Then they go out, and so they work together to learn it. That they go out into their villages and they teach their kids and the local farmers. And yeah, so this group has been really active for quite some time. Yeah, so the permaculture charity it has a website, ethosfoundation.org.au, which is actually one of the things that I need some help with, because it's not up to date with all the latest projects, and it's got some information about projects that have happened and some of the reports about that, but I'd really like to get a lot more information in there. So on that website, I also have a donation button. And as you know, many of you have supported it. So there's donations always welcome to projects, and all the money is directed to these local projects. So I don't take any money out for admin. I just send all the money directly to the projects themselves and cover the admin side of things with the Permaculture Education Institute. And also through the Permaculture Education Institute, we donate courses to the leaders of those groups who then work through the program and then are able to teach people. The original idea was that, as well as this, would be that we would be able to go and directly work in country with these groups. And that's all changed this year. So my idea was that anyone around the world who's been doing the Permaculture Educators Program or another permaculture program could come and work with us in country, supporting, say, the women's group or the Permayouth programs or whatever it might be. So that's kind of shifted and changed at the moment. So we're doing as much as we can online. So we're mostly working down around Uganda and Kenya there. And the reason why that is primarily because that's where people have got in touch with me from, asking for help. And, you know, the first contact that I had with a lot of people many years ago was when they reached out just via messaging me. And I was a little bit apprehensive to start with, thinking, oh, I don't know, you know, people are just asking me to give them money and support them. But I did a bit of research, I started a conversation, and it turns out that, you know, they were absolutely genuine and are doing amazing things. And so I'm constantly in conversation with people through WhatsApp mostly. And then they talk to their friends, and they've got another project happening. And so throughout Kenya and Uganda, and then when I've been there, I've gone and visited their projects. So I can kind of really vouch for the fact that they're absolutely authentic and are doing incredible things. Mostly at the moment, both in Uganda and Kenya, we seem to be working with refugee groups. And I don't think I can use my mouse here at the moment. That's the only thing with screen sharing is, hang on, I might just take it off. Here we go. Now you can see it. So right up in this part of Kenya, there's a refugee camp called Kakuma refugee camp. Kakamega is down here in the foresty bit. That's where the women are. Up in this region is where the refugee camp is, and there's about 200,000 people living up there. So we're working with a couple of groups up there. Then over in Uganda, part of the program we ran with the permaculture design course and the teachers last year was over here. Currently we're working with a refugee camp in this part of Uganda. So mostly people from the Congo, and these people that we've been working with have been in those camps for over a decade. And I was just speaking to one woman yesterday, asking her about what they see as their future and what they, you know, how long do they expect to be in the camps. She said, look, honestly, we could be here forever. Said so few people ever get relocated to another country, and we have no sense that things are calming down at all in the Democratic Republic of Congo that we could go home. So this is our life, and we're kind of trying to make the most of it. And so but when I was talking to Rosemary Morrow who does a lot of work with refugees and displaced people with permaculture. She was saying that, you know, the key thing about teaching permaculture in these communities is not just to teach little gardening techniques and stuff, which is very useful because it's direct need, but about teaching the permaculture design skills, because if, you know, for where they are now, it helps them to really design those, their homes. Where they could end up going to, it helps them to see their place new and have the skills to observe and design and set something up well. And if they do get the chance to go back and they need to reconstruct, they can build back better. So whichever way, she's saying, you know, these skills of permaculture are really, really helpful. So I'll just go down here to, so the refugee camp in, it's called the Ramwanja refugee camp or refugee settlement. There's about 70,000 people who are living there. And it's managed by the UNHCR, but I've just been getting reports from the people living there saying that there's no funding coming in and there's very little support in any way whatsoever. And so basically there's just so much self-organisation that's going on. And there's one guy there, you may well have met him on the course. He comes in regularly to our sessions, Bemariki. I don't know if you remember seeing him. He's just the most extraordinary teacher there. He's so committed. He runs programs of all different sorts of the kids. We've just recently been supporting them to get sort of, they went out and got tools and seeds and wheelbarrows and watering cans, a water tank, a whole lot of things to get their gardens happening. I've got so many photos that they've sent them. This is part of what I need to do, is to put together some reports of each of their projects that they've been doing, and sort of to write it up and to work with him to do a really good description of the kind of work that they are doing there. It was really sad actually. Last week, one of these young boys, who's 15 years old, died of malaria. And it was really rapid. I think they call it Blackwater disease or something, where there's a complication with the malaria, and he ended up getting, I think it was like blood in his urine. It was like 2 or 3 days and he was dead. And they said if he'd been able to get to a hospital in time, he could have had a blood transfusion, but they managed to get him to a healthcare facility, but they didn't have the right kind of blood. And so then they had to try and transfer him to someone else, and he ended up dying. So so this group is in mourning at the moment for their friend. This group too comes in regularly to talk with the Permayouth, the global Permayouth group, which meets every Sunday. And so they have this conversation with kids from the UK, from Australia, from Zanzibar, and they're learning together. And it's a youth-led program. My daughter kind of coordinates it. My 14-year-old daughter coordinates it, and they have quizzes together. They talk about principles and design, and there's this backwards and forwards. It's really amazing. And so and then they've started doing pen pals between these kids as well. And last night they were on a call. One of the girls from Australia was talking about sewing and mending and fixing and all of that. And what came out of that session was that the Permayouth group is actually going to donate to them a sewing machine so that they can get a sewing system set up there. Because part of when we send money over too, it's always for extra little bits of clothing and shoes and stuff like that as well. So that's the Permayouth group in Uganda. And now the plan with that is that this is the core group, and they're going through doing the permaculture design course, and they also want to be youth teachers. So Bemariki, the teacher who you've met, is wanting to get other teachers to help ripple this out, to spread it out through the camp, and also to set up a school itself that's a permaculture school that can teach young people. But little bit by little bit, we're not kind of, we haven't got a plan to say, $50,000 and we'll set up a school. It's just like, a few $100s here and there. So far we've sent over $1,000 for water tanks and seeds and tools and books. So all the resources that I can find, like the permaculture, the tropical permaculture guide, which is a 1,000-page booklet that was prepared by Lockie McKenzie and Ego Lemos in Timor. It's an illustrated book, so it cost a lot of money to get printed and bound. So they've got a couple of copies of that, and they've got a few other copies of various really good permaculture resources that I've been able to digitally send to them. Also, someone from our course, Andy, has donated a projector. And so what's going to happen now is that we are always sending links to different sorts of films and things that they can watch and presentations, so that he's been showing the kids, the group, permaculture on a phone. So they kind of gather around his phone trying to watch something to learn. And so what we're going to do is try and get it so that he can project it up onto a sort of the back of an old UNHCR tent on the wall, and then they can create like a local cinema of some sort. So that's about to be sent, and then we've also just got some funding from the Abundant Earth Foundation, which is the group a woman called Hannah runs out, Hannah Apricot Eckbert in California. And she's the one who used to organize the Permaculture magazine in the US, and also offers the money for the Permaculture Youth Prize, which has been going for a few years. So she's just put some money up so they can get a proper camera and a microphone so they can start to make films. He's been sending little clips of films, and it's as they're doing their garden, as they're making their sack gardens, as they're making their no-dig gardens, as they're making compost, as whatever they're doing, to be making little films of, so then they can then share that with other people, and it can ripple out into other communities. And we're talking about what kind of camera to get, and he says, oh, I could get one that's slightly cheaper. So then I had a little bit of extra money to get a guitar. And he said, because we've got musicians, and our real goal here too is to write permaculture songs so that the permaculture thinking ripples further and faster. And I said, look, just get get that camera, and we'll give you a little bit extra so you can get a guitar, because both of those things, to be able to make good films with good sound and have songs, like that just makes sense. So kind of how we're thinking about this is that we talk with them about what they need, what direction they're going, and not trying to say, okay, well, you need to set up this program or this program. It's more just working with where they're at, what they're needing, and how they're kind of flowing with it. So the Permayouth also put some money together to help the family with the funeral, and because with the funerals there, they invite a whole lot of people for celebrations, and they need to feed people. And anyway, and his sister is now joining the group, which is really nice as well. And then the sewing machine. Sorry, let's excuse me just a minute. I'm just going to say goodbye to my son. He's going to school. Bye, Monty. He's very slow up the hill. Bye. So that's in Uganda, and that group, we have what I imagine will be an ongoing relationship for a very long time, because it's not just this group that's starting, but they'll then teach other people who teach other people. So we're just responding to that over time. Then a similar group, now this woman here, Sakina, which is Sakina, you may well have seen this picture before. I met Sakina in Uganda when I was there. She was one of the students of a permaculture course. We'd help her to get from the refugee camp to this course. And when she went back, she started teaching young kids, and she set up like a permaculture kindergarten type of program, which has just actually received UNHCR accreditation yesterday, which is amazing. But now she's focusing too on supporting getting Permayouth happening. So just in the last week or well, no, actually last month, this Permayouth group has formed. And again, we're able to get them some tools and seeds and materials, a tank. We're just trying to work out how we get some money to get some piping to get water to the tank, because it's a dry season and they haven't got any water there. So there's a waterway somewhere they can actually pump water up into this tank so they can grow their food. Because the key thing that's happening there at the moment is that with COVID, their rations that are getting to these camps have been cut by at least a half. And there's a lot of hunger and there's a lot of malnutrition anyway, because of the lack of fresh food that they get with those rations as well. So growing food is kind of critical. They've just set up a Facebook group last week called Permaculture Progress in Kakuma Refugee Camp. There's 3 members on it so far, so you can kind of follow along what they're going to do on that. So they've just started they've got this really hard piece of land, so they've just started opening up the land, what they're saying, and starting to do classes. They have this sort of tin shed area where they're doing classes and then they go outside. So she's working with about 30 kids at the moment, and then there's another 30 that are waiting to be worked with, and she's also, so that's what we've donated there so far. Tool, seeds, watering cans. So what happens with these tools is that they get bought, they work on opening up a piece of land and starting the gardens there, but then the kids get to take those tools back home to their own place, because they've each got a bit of land around their little shack that they can do gardening with as well. And the idea is that they're learning together in the community garden space, and then they go back home and they create home gardens. So it was about $35, I think, to get a kid's full set of all their tools and some seeds as well. So I think after about 50 kids or more, plus a tank and other community facilities, books and things as well. And so we're just about to try and raise the money for that water pipe, the 80 meters of water pipe and a pump. And then very soon, I think I mentioned too, she wants to start teaching, Sakina wants to start teaching women's groups. So on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, she's teaching the youth. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, she wants to teach, in the afternoon, she wants to teach some mothers. So that they can become more teachers like her and then go out and teach more kids. So we're hoping to start that training, and the same thing, offer more tools and offer more seeds and offer, they'll have another garden that they work with. So it always ends up being around about $1,000 to get them going. So that's what we're working on. And then hopefully this works. Let me see if it will work. It's a little video.
Okay, thank you so much. We continue with our activity. We are in our land. I'm already introduced myself. I'm called Sakina Kiriba. I'm an ambassador for Permayouth in Kakuma. We have our activity today for starting planning our gardens for Permayouth. And also we have our man who needed to join to program of Permaculture because he needed so much, and it's for his effort that you bought this land. So he needed also next time to join him about a program of session of Permaculture. So thank you so much. I think after 1 week we start with the adult education of Permayouth. And all this one is the effort of Morag in Australia, because it's about him. That's why we got all these activities to going on and to run without any problem. Thank you so much.
So, so that was her. Obviously she's decided in the last day or so, that film she just sent to me yesterday, that as well as the mothers, there could be a few other local farmers as well. And that makes sense. So it's an adults group of a course. So that's, again, Kakuma Refugee Camp. oops, sorry, I'll get to the next one. There's another group on another side of Kakuma refugee camp. As I mentioned, it's 200,000 people who are living in Kakuma. They have sent me a request to start up another Permayouth group, and they've got an organization called Youth Education and Development Association. And they work with sort of the youth around the 14 to 20-year-olds, whereas the ones that Sakina was working with are around the sort of the 10 to 15-year-olds mostly. And this other group sent me a proposal, and I wasn't sure. I hadn't met them before. I hadn't heard of them. So Sakina traveled over to the other side of the camp and visited them and got to know them. And so she said, look, they're fantastic. They really know what they're talking about. They have had permaculture training before. They just need support to get this Permayouth program happening. And so I found out who their teacher was. Is a Kenyan man who lives around Kisumu called Maurice. And so Maurice and I are now talking to see how we can best support those people, and I can work out what they know, what extra support they need. So there's a lot of linking up. And also he has a seed bank, I've discovered, so they can actually get better quality local seeds. So that's brilliant. I'm really excited about that. And then in Kenya, that's the women's group that I mentioned, that first slide. So what we've been doing with them is last year there was a course that we raised a lot of money for to get people from all over different parts of the region, and then as well as teaching them permaculture, there was 4 local teachers who were teaching that course. Part of that, why it ended up being so expensive, I kept saying, why is this course this amount of money? And they said, well, we're buying, for people to come in, and they did it at a school. And so part of that program was to set up gardens that would stay with the school. They bought mattresses and new bedding to sleep in, which then they left at the school. So the kids had new beds, because they were absolutely disgusting. And I know exactly what they look like, because when I was there in one of the boarding schools, I saw the mattresses, and the whole room was just absolutely just stank. There's a lot of really young kids at these schools, and anyway, so they got new beds, new mattresses, new pillows, new blankets, a garden for the school, and also all the people who went out back to their communities went away with extra tools and seeds and resources to help start the next rippling out. Also, there's been several water tanks donated to some of the women's who are part of that program, so then they could set up demonstration gardens. And then they've been running a series of different workshops in different communities, so for various resources and things that they needed for that. And the big thing that's happening at the moment, which is the main project that I'm supporting them on right now, is they've just signed a contract to buy a piece of land, because most of these women, they're widows, and they have tiny bits of land. So they're trying to work together to create a community farm, which is a demonstration farm where people can come and see permaculture, so they can start to shift the agricultural practices. Whereas before, around their homes, they've set up demonstration gardens, but that's just about what they do in zone 1. They really wanted to affect what's happening at the agriculture level. So after a lot of talking, I accepted to actually raise the money for them to buy this piece of land that's going to be a permaculture education centre. So they've already started farming there. We've paid for the first instalment. So I sent them $1,000 on the 14th of August. So I need to raise another $1,000 for the 14th of September, 14th of October, for 6 months. And then they'll have this piece of land, which is theirs, and they're going to set up buildings and demonstrations, like all the different parts of permaculture, and then bring people in regularly to teach them about this. And it's right near a school as well, so they'll be working with a primary school and a secondary school. So that's Jane, the elder, kind of the leader of this, who I talk with every day pretty much via WhatsApp. And this is her house. And there's a couple of the women on the piece of land. So what they're trying to do is you can see that the soil is really degraded, and pretty much what's grown there is corn and there's a kind of a kale thing that's grown there, but you can see it's really not flourishing. So they've got a lot of work to do to start bringing life back to it. But that's what the situation is there all around. So they want to actually demonstrate how to do that. And then this is her, I don't know if you can hear that.
And she has been teaching us about permaculture, and we are really doing it in our small demonstration garden. And we are really appreciating about permaculture technology. Say hi to you and Maya. Thank you.
So this is Jane's granddaughter. And so there's a group of Permayouth that are kind of in and around this as well. And this is part of a permaculture garden demonstration. So you can see there's like garden swales happening and a lot more mulching going on, you know, like bananas, and, you know, there's mixture of different plants. And so, yeah, I think at the end there, she said, say hi to Maya and Hugh. That's because when we were there, they were playing together. So it's really nice to see. I didn't realize there was so much of a Permayouth thing happening there too, but that's great. Now in Kenya, not far from that area, but a little bit lower, recently they had massive floods through an area and a lot of people were displaced. So we were able to send money to support. Just, this was the thing that was challenging because, you know, mostly we're supporting permaculture education and getting education centers set up, and really just helping that side. And then my friend here, Moses, who is leading this, he's an elderly man who works a lot with disabilities. He has a withered leg and he walks with a stick, and he's constantly talking to me about, you know, how to support young kids with disabilities and how to support, there's another young girl here, this is Faith, who she's deaf, and so we've been able to send her to a special deaf school. I've just done that separately outside of the Ethos Foundation, and similarly with the flood relief. But it was kind of this thing around people care, like, you know, if they're lost their homes and their farms and they've got nothing to eat, you know, saying, oh well, I'll teach you permaculture is kind of not the right reaction at that time. The right reaction at that time is you need something to eat, you need some shelter, and you need somewhere to sleep. So we bought them some mattresses to sleep on and some blankets and sacks of food. And that was over 100 people stuck in this little area for about a month. So that was that. Then recently he's just asked, he's been, for all the work he's been doing with permaculture, he was another one of the teachers that's come out of the permaculture program that we were running in Uganda not that long ago. He's been asked input into an agricultural conference, and so he wants to be able to travel to that. I don't know when it is, I need to find out the details, but there's 4 of them that are going to travel to this conference and present permaculture. So he's just asked me for $200, and he also wants to start organizing another permaculture design course for the region. So I'm working on helping him to get that organized. And then there's Days for Girls. So another one of these are 2 of the other teachers that have come out of the permaculture course that I've mentioned before in Uganda. This is Caroline and Jennifer. Now, Caroline is an amazing permaculture teacher. She had for a long time been running agricultural extension things through the, what's it called? The One Acre Fund, which was actually sponsored by the Gates Foundation, I believe, and it rippled out throughout Africa. And unfortunately, it really promotes heavy use of chemicals and fertilizers and promotes quite monocultural growing. And it kind of like, it's almost like a pyramid scheme as well, because you kind of, if you then get another group of people in and another group of people in, then you can't get all these kickbacks. And she's just saying, look, I've seen it's destroying people's livelihoods and land, because they end up in these debt cycles, and it changes the whole structure of the village, because the ones who everyone else is indebted to become the leaders as opposed to the village leaders. And so anyway, she's now starting to ripple out a different type of farming education, which is through permaculture. And she said she's setting up her own place as a demonstration. She's just doing that completely on her own bat, and it's absolutely brilliant. So, but it's not her that I wanted to talk about in this moment. It's actually the other woman, Jennifer. And Jennifer is probably the first person that I started supporting in Kenya. She wrote and spoke to me about her program called, which is linked to the Days for Girls global program, but it's, it's just an independent one. She's not got any kind of affiliation formally with that. I've tried to sort of link her up with that, but it's they don't have any formal programs in Kenya. So Days for Girls is where people are making the washable sanitary pads for girls. And so in a lot of places, around the developed world, people are sewing them up and then they send them over there. What she's doing is she's a dressmaker, and she collects scraps of fabric and she makes up kits for girls, but she needs extra resources for like the inserts and the undies and all that kind of stuff. So we've been supporting her for years to create these kits. And so she's just she just wrote to me again to get another set of kit for 1,000 girls, because she goes school by school. Schools are all closed until at least January in Kenya. And so what she's trying to do is she's going church by church now, because that's where people are actually gathering. $1 for a kit of undies and washable pads will where these girls can, and I think they last for 3 years, she's saying, roughly. And she's written to me in desperation because she said since the pandemic, in the Kakamega region, there's 17,000 pregnancies in girls. And in her region alone, in Butere, where Moses also lives, they're friends, there's 6,000 in just this small area. And so this is also part of the reason why a lot of the Permayouth programs are really being put forward a lot now too, because it's some way to keep the kids active, to have them with supervision, and to really give them something productive to do while this time is on. But it's not just that. When before COVID, she was telling me about how without the washable pads, these girls actually miss a week of school every month, because unless they have the pads, they can't go to school. And that mostly they can't afford the commercial ones. But there's also a lot of issue around that they do favors for the shopkeeper to get the pads. And then, they end up with a lot of STDs or unwanted pregnancies. And, a lot of the girls say, oh, well, I'll have the child and then I'll go back to school. But the fact is that, 95 or more % never do. And so it's kind of, that's it for the girls' education. And, it's devastating effects for their future because they're really young. So anyway, the washable pads are important from so many different perspectives. And so what she does, though, when she goes and delivers these kits, she also has education programs. So she talks to the girls about reproductive health. She talks to the girls about rights. She talks to the girls about how to not give themselves away at such a young age. She talks about so many different sorts of things with them. But she also is starting to teach them about permaculture, since she's learned about it too, to help them with that. So what she's hoping to do is to get, this is a current program, she wants to get, I'm just trying to get my mouse. So $1,000 to get 1,000 kits for the girls in all the way around her region, and also to run education programs, which is permaculture education programs and reproductive health programs for girls over the next 2 to 3 months. She has a team that she works with. So that's what that program is about. And yeah, so so essentially, in summary of all of that, I kind of need help with fundraising, reporting the great projects that have been happening, like getting together all the notes and the photographs and reporting. I've just not been able to keep up with the amount of projects that are happening. Updating the website, researching great extra resources for, different sort of techniques, easy techniques for garden systems or compost toilet systems or water collection systems. Really useful, practical, doable, affordable systems. Because what we want to do with that then is to put that into a booklet. So as soon as we start working with a group, that they get a booklet that has all these techniques. Now, believe me, I have been looking everywhere. I have scoured the world for this book and I cannot find it. And maybe you have seen something and I would love to hear of it. But, there's booklets that are full of text and a couple of little scratchy drawings. Or there's a couple of booklets that are like a couple of posters, but maybe they're not appropriate pictures for that context. Or anyway, so if we can't find them, then it's actually illustrating those. And I'm thinking that these booklets should be in a way that it's irrespective of language, so that, or they could easily be translated so that they would have, hi there, Pia's husband, so that they have a booklet that can be used either for kids or for adults. That's very simple to read, that is, like a clear instructional illustrated booklet. And then if there's a text in there, it'd be in a box, and that you could like take that out of one language and translate and plop another one in, like really easy graphic thing to do. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. And you may have completely other ideas as well of how you think it might be, you might be able to help, or ideas of things that you've seen. So I'm just going to stop screen sharing now and just open it up for questions, or hi there, questions or comments or suggestions or anything. I'm, like most of this is just me here communicating with these individual groups, and then putting out a call, whatever donations come into Ethos Foundation, sending them across to them and just staying in touch and supporting them. And then people like Bemariki will come in and be part of our discussions in the course. They all have access to whatever material that you have in the course as well. But the problem is that with the kind of the internet level that they have, it's really limited in terms of how they can access that or access movies. So it's really about creating something that I think can be shared via WhatsApp. So I'm going to start creating little videos as well. And that's something they've asked for, like a 1-minute video on each of the principles, for example, or a 1-minute video about this technique that can be shared via WhatsApp, and then they can then share that with the groups. So okay, I'll stop speaking now and open it up for you to have a chat or ask questions or offer suggestions.
You've been doing some great work, Morag.
Thanks, Barb. Well, I mean, it's mostly the groups out there that are doing the work. I'm just trying to help facilitate it, that's all.
Yeah, don't put that down though. I mean, I've been thinking about resources and funding with a couple of things that stood out to me. I guess resources. I'm quite interested in Okay, so I've done quite a lot of stuff putting together simple material and simple teaching material. I started out doing it for village midwives and barefoot doctors and for first aid in people who were basically illiterate,
Yeah.
or barely literate. So stuff that's sort of pretty much all pictures and a few very simple notes added. And I'm also very interested in appropriate technology. So yeah, I think I could maybe have some further discussion with you about that.
Right.
Fundraising. I wondered if I used to do workshops at Northey Street, and I used to particularly do solar cooking ones. And they sort of, you know, charge a lot of money, and I think they overcharge people actually. But I'm thinking about that as maybe, I mean, not Northey Street, but workshops as a possible way to raise money. So you not only spread the permaculture word here, but use the income specifically. So for what, say, a relatively small input of a few hours work, I mean, certainly plus preparation time, which can be considerable. You know, the time and the dollar multiplies.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. I mean, there's lots of different, and that way, you know, people are benefiting themselves as well as donating. So you get the double whammy of the two benefits. So it could be, yeah, tours of, you know, we could do tours of Crystal Waters or workshops somewhere else, or yeah, I mean, if anyone else wanted to do that too, that'd be fantastic. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, we at Northey Street, we also used to do workshops for that was just basically a half day PDC session. That, so, you know, instead of having people having to do a whole PDC, if they wanted to come in and talk about
bits,
you know, a food forest or a appropriate technology or whatever, or how to build a sustainable house, you know, they could come and just do that particular one. So, I mean, there are all sorts of things that you could do, and I guess the thing is having a venue to do it, and having a place where, you know, it's accessible for people to come.
Yeah.
I didn't actually find that solar cooking was other people weren't as enthusiastic about solar cooking as I was. And that they'd come if it was a free workshop, but you know, even if they came and made a solar cooker, they took it home and they put it in the back of the cupboard and didn't use it mostly.
I know Lizzie's got to go to work. Did you want to dive in and say something? I see you were about to say something just before.
Yeah, is that okay, Pierre? I mean, there's so much going on there, and I think you've built some great relationships, obviously, in those countries. So there's a lot of trust, is what I'm hearing. Just reflecting that back. I think with I think the question I had is, when do you pull out your support? Because that's, you know, you're building it up so that they are controlling it and having ownership and all the rest of it, and deciding what they do, which is, you know, really important, I think, for their own communities. But when they're set up is there something threaded in there about how not only doing good work in the community and providing good food, but maybe setting up some sort of enterprise aspect so that they can become self-funding themselves, which helps you move on to other projects. I'm sure you've thought of that. So that was just one reflection I had. And the tech idea, like how they can access information, is important to understand. I think you know, like you can't assume they can access YouTube and great internet, of course, or anyone can. And I think the whole lockdown situation has highlighted the polarity of that in Australia as well. Some people just can't afford, you know, 24-hour Netflix. So yeah, so how they need to use technology, I'd be interested in just nutting that out with some people in those communities, just so that we have a clear understanding of that.
Yeah.
And then that sort of drives, yeah, how the information needs to be delivered. So whether it's you know, TikTok or WhatsApp, or dictates how long that video can be, doesn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, TikTok and WhatsApp is where it's at, I think, you know, to be honest. That Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp.
Yeah, I've heard some very interesting stories of how people have used their mobile phone apps for an economy base as well, like just creating a trading system using the technology they've got.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm very happy to help with any research. I can sort of help with the architecture of your web page. I'm not a web page designer, but I have some sort of those back-end skills of how users would see and use your web information.
Great.
Certainly do that. That's probably, you know, a week's work, I'd expect. It's not that big a deal. And yeah, just strategizing. That's sort of my field. Is more sort of seeing that big picture and trying to piece things together and try to define how to put, you know, make your energy come into something as well. So so that it's built up, so people can then go off and can continue to do, but you can step out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you, I mean, so today I really wanted to kind of share what it is that has been happening, where things are going, and where the kind of the common threads seem to be, which seem to be around the youth and the women mostly, which seems to be the common threads. The main overview focus is around permaculture education and demonstration. And so, you know, if we wanted to go away and sort of think about it and sort of come up with a few different ideas and then come back again at another time to talk more about it, so, you know, had a chance to let it percolate a bit, I'd be really delighted to do that. Hi,
yeah,
Jen,
I think,
nice
and just one other thing is,
sorry, yeah.
One other thing is that I work with Community Resources Limited, which runs the permaculture farm in Wollongong area, in Kel Champagne, and they run a lot of youth programs. So whether there's a connection there with Permayouth, I haven't heard that mentioned by anyone there, but like they do a lot of face-to-face youth programs, but that might be a really good supportive network for them to tap into as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll mention that to them. Yeah. Sorry, Pia, I'll jump out now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking a bit about all those girls who get pregnant and how you could help those, because I mean, like I wrote to you, I had a child, one for the Children's Fund, where she dropped out of a good teaching possibility because of a child. And I don't know if there's any possibility that you kind of set up for these or suggest for these pregnant girls that while they're having some permaculture teaching and practical work, there'll be some daycare for perhaps half the group. They take care of all the babies, and then they kind of swap. So they could get into some learning program with Permayouth, and perhaps about nutrition and how to take care of the babies and food and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
so they could get into a kind of group and go on from there. It was like, take it, they're all very young, the youngest of them especially.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So actually creating, you know, because there's very soon there's going to be a massive group of,
oh, sounds like a lot, yeah.
like 6,000 girls in that just one region.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like that's a lot of programs actually that really need to happen, you know,
Yeah.
because they are youth, and it is about, yeah. And so you can kind of imagine that there's going to be this whole, well, I mean, it's always happening, but it's kind of, I've even seen it.
Sounds massive. Yeah.
It's hit the news here in Australia about, I don't know if it's hit the news where you are, that this is happening. But I heard about it, you know, from these women and they're sending me these figures, little reports from their local papers about what's happening. And yeah, directly addressing that issue, I think, is a really important one, Pia. Yeah, thanks for that.
And like I said, I could do some research. I'm a bit into making booklets as well with the group of kids I do. It has to be very visual, so I'm used to that. Like I said, I'm not quite sure how much time I've got, but it's one of the things I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, great. I mean, anything like, yeah, anything is wonderful, and you know, whether it be ideas or pictures or, you know, just anything that you find, send in. I'll start to sort of collate things together, and you know, or maybe someone might pop up who says, oh, I'd love to collate that. So that's also but
are there artists within the communities you're working within, Morag, that could be sort of allocated to those sort of projects, because you know that might make more sense to them to do it from that end?
Absolutely. So just starting to get to know them a little bit more. So a lot of these new, like the youth, are just beginning, but Bemariki seems to be quite good at doing some basic drawings. But I have asked he said there is an artist, there's a musician that's, you know, the song's going to come out of there, but also some illustrations. So so I've asked them to start with doing the filmmaking, but I asked them to start doing the drawing, but that's a great idea. It's the simple thing.
They can go together. Yeah.
How much access do they have to technology?
Well, depends. If they're part of a centre somewhere, they may be able to access through that. Most people do have some kind of phone, but not necessarily a great phone for doing streaming or anything. They do a lot of WhatsApp, you know. And apparently particularly in Kenya, when you sign up for the main communications thing, they give you free WhatsApp. So that's why they use that a lot, because that's what they can do, free texting with that. So that's where I get all my comms from them. You know, each day they're sending me videos and photos and updating about stuff or asking further questions about things, and then I just keep asking them questions too, just to try and get deeper into finding what is actually happening, and they might send me something, then I realize, oh, I have no idea what's going on there. So it's just a toing and froing all the time, just trying to understand more, so to know how to be of better assistance, really. Yeah.
So one of the things we did with the cooperative group was one of the first things we've done is there's like a skill share, like what people know about, what people are prepared to share, what people want to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that any group will naturally talk about that, but because you're sort of across everything, that might be a useful thing to ask people to just gather that information, because you know, if they're not, some of the community sounds like they're sort of relatively close to each other. Maybe people can travel between and share skills between communities at this point, because they sound like each community has sort of got some, you know, runs whatever the, you know, maturity about what they're doing anyway. So I think if you're prepared to share it in your community, you probably can share it with another community as well, whether it's face to face or online or whatever they can do.
Yeah, great. And so those sort of conversations, I think, happen within the group, but actually like getting it to be more visible, I think, like you say, is a really great idea. Yeah. Yeah.
That's something you could host on a web page as well, like a hidden web page. People can access that, so they know who to connect or ask if they're struggling with a particular problem, or like it's just like a knowledge base.
Do you know much about WhatsApp? Like whether is there any other features of WhatsApp?
I have a 20-year-old. I'm sure she can tell me. So.
Yeah, because as far as I can, so I know that with it you can organise to have a video conference of up to 8 people. I know that you can do calls with it, so I sometimes talk with people. You can leave voice messages with it. You can send videos and photos and text. But actually to have a resource somewhere, that probably just does need to be the website, because otherwise things get lost in this kind of ongoing scroll of you can create groups, which is good. I mean, I've thought actually of creating a group between all the different global Permayouth ones, so they can start to share what they're doing. That was one thing that I thought would be helpful.
I think you need a sort of what I would call strategy around this, because everyone sort of in the Western world thinks everyone needs to have it all in one place, but but that may not work for that community either, because of culture and whatever, access and things like that. So they may prefer to, I don't know, have a list of people they can contact, and then the human connects them with the information or something like that, as opposed to going somewhere online. So there's lots of nuances in that, I guess, to think about. But you can spend a lot of time, I'm just saying that because you can spend a lot of time consolidating information, and then nobody can access it, or it all goes out of date really quickly, or it's, someone dominates it and things like that. So it's a bit of a trap.
So having it staying fluid, but also at the same time trying not to kind of lose great stuff that's
the self-organizing. I picked up the self-organizing side of it. That's a real strength for any group to have that sort of attitude anyway. So I think so.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And also the thread that you were saying about the exit strategy, and definitely the enterprise is part of it. And I think that part of this, the one particularly with the land, that the idea is that then they're talking about the enterprises that they're going to run from that as well, that support the whole thing, because sort of said really clearly that I can help to gather funds to support the purchase of the land, which seems to be like the big bit, but then actually managing the farm and creating the programs and all that stuff that then comes out of what they do on that land together.
And that's a fantastic story. I mean, if you want fundraising, that's a story to bring together. And I don't know if one of us in a community, I would probably focus on that particular project and bring that story to visibility, to seed crowdfunding, whatever you want to do to help sustain that. Because if they can get that running, that's like a showcase piece for the country, isn't it?
That's right. And just on I didn't include it. There's another project a little bit northwest of where that land is. I've been talking each week with another Jane who is running a program, who wants to set up a permaculture design course. I was actually meant to be there now working with her, but we've sort of put it off. She's been talking with the Minister for Agriculture for the region, and that she chairs the caucus of all the agriculture ministers for all the regions of Africa. And we had her on a call like this about a month ago, introducing her to permaculture, and she absolutely loved it. And so she has now given a piece of land to that community to set up a demonstration. I only found out this last week. And so and on that land, going to set up a demonstration centre and then use that to teach extension officers. And so we're hoping that with that demonstration and this community-led one, that will start to access program. Apparently there's a program about donating fruit trees, but this group over here doesn't know about it. There's a lot of, you know, and this guy over here has a seed bank, but they don't know about that. And so it's this kind of connecting the dots sort of thing, and just trying to stay abreast of what's happening and using the communications technology to say, oh, you should talk to this person or this person. And so that's also a fair bit of you know, what I'm doing as well. And you can't document that because that kind of moves so quickly. You can share the stories and keep telling the stories and having forums where the stories keep getting told. And that's kind of seems to be working okay. But actually that's why I've not spent so much time on, you know, preparing great reports, because it's just about speaking. But I do need to be writing up along the way what has happened and be a little bit more particular about that. So
setting up the framework for that is some I could help you with that over time. But
having an easy like if there's an easy way that, you know, like on a website that I can go, okay, here's some photos and here's that, and for the person who set it up for me before, it's all codey. I'm not a coder. Kind of went, oh, that's great, but I just, it's too hard. So I've got all the material, but I'm just not able to input it because it's just beyond my capacity to. I could learn it, but I don't have the time to learn it. I mean, that's
there's plenty of web page platforms. You don't need to code now. So sorry, I've got to go. I've got so many ideas, but I'll write them down and send them to everyone. Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. Good day, everyone.
I think I need to be going as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for your time. It's been really great to have your input, and any ideas, just feel free to flick me through an email, or you know, maybe I'll sort of organize another conversation chat time where we can sort of come back and explore some ideas together and maybe keep moving things along, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pia. Take care.
It's good to, yeah, you too. Bye.
Hey, Jeannie or Barbie, you still there? Hello,
Yep.
Jeannie. How are you?
I'm trying to find the right button. Yeah, good. No, listening to it all with interest.
Yes, I just wanted to listen in and see how this was going and what sorts of ideas were coming out, because it's very difficult to help from a distance when we can't go there. So there's been some very good ideas here, and I was concerned with what Pia was saying about this rash of new babies. Does this mean there's been a lot of...
Yeah, well, so I can send you the recording of the sort of the slides that I shared with the start with. In this one particular area of Kenya, in the western part of Kenya, around the Kakamega region, 17,000 new child pregnancies, and in one community alone, there's 6,000.
Is this from young marriages or from rape?
Well, I don't know whether it's rape or just young kids being bored and not having anything else to do because there's no bit of both. I would say a lot of rape as well.
Which would often go unreported because of the threat of violence if it were reported. So
and also that are being uncles and, you know, family members and things as well. So
I wonder, I mean, I don't know the traditions there, but whether they have enough clothes for the babies.
Probably not.
And what kind of clothes? Because it's not cold like it is here, is it?
I know, but it can get quite cool. They're up in Kakamega, which is sort of up towards the hills. I was surprised, you know, I expected going into the tropics I'd be hot like in Indonesia, but it was actually quite cool in
so those little babies may need warm clothes at night. So if we could somehow get together a whole lot of baby clothes and send them, or put it in with other resources, so that the resources that were sent were a whole package rather than random things, if you see what I mean. The resources that have been suggested here, and if they went through your charity, there'd be some sort of coordination of them.
Yeah, I wonder. I've never sent stuff. I've only ever given them money that then they buy stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, but you know, it may be that. I mean, I wonder. Yeah, I wonder. Or you know, the other thing could be. I don't know, but you know, there's some seamstresses over there. Whether there's a way of actually helping the seamstresses to, you know, get a few more machines, train up some more young people, and actually do it that way.
Yeah, because also that would give the young mothers something to do in terms of something constructive that would also increase their skills.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So.
And if we just sent the mothers money, then that may be taken off them by whoever was responsible. You know what I mean?
Well, this is why, you know, this is why I'm trying to work through these kind of the groups, these organised women's groups, and that are that have it as a program rather than to individual mothers. Send it to this group, and then they invite. You know, like with the permaculture that's happening or whatever, they invite people into that space and then send them home with a kit. Not the money itself. The money goes into that.
That's a much better idea.
Yeah. But I think the children's clothing, and also the idea that that Pia had about doing programs for the young girls around nutrition and caring for their baby and you know, that all that sort of stuff.
I think that nutrition one is an excellent idea. And I was just thinking about milk, because I mean, obviously the mothers will feed their babies, but sometimes they can't, or sometimes they don't have enough. And not all of those girls may have access to an animal like a goat, because they use goat's milk, which is wonderful if you can get it. And I was just thinking of your idea in the Plastic Free July of the hemp milk, because that is actually quite nutritious. And I mean, just for me personally, it has saved 72 cartons from going to the tip.
That's right.
It's awesome, because I can't cope with anything that comes out of a cow. I can have goat's milk or goat's cheese, but I can't touch anything that comes out of a cow. Which I'm not sure if that's the cow or whether that's the dairy company that, you know, produces the milk, because we don't know what they put in it or what they clean their vats with or whatever. So having the hemp milk is just wonderful, and it's such an easy way to do it.
So easy, isn't it?
So in terms of nutrition, that may be one thing that could also go into the mix if people don't have access to animal milk, and there will be some of those girls who may not have access to it.
I wonder whether whether they can grow hemp there. Like, I've never heard them.
Exactly. Yeah,
because it's, you know, it's such a valuable plant in so many different ways. You know, for preparing the soil and as being organic matter and fodder for animals, as well as, you know, the seeds for protein. I mean,
I'll get in touch with our hemp people here and see if it can be grown there. I mean, they may already, and if they do, of course, that's ideal.
I've never heard of it being grown there, but wouldn't that be fantastic?
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Because it's an easy crop to grow, and it gives 2 yields a year, possibly even 3. There are particular, it's like with coffee, there are particular climatic requirements, but if is possible to, I mean, it'd be worth trialing it, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Especially for in the higher regions, possibly.
Yeah.
And that would be growing anything is a great skill for those girls.
Actually, I came across a group in South Africa who were, I think they were doing some trials down there. I might actually get in touch with them and see whether they know anything about whether there's anything going on.
Yeah, they know about hemp growing on the continent.
Yeah, yeah.
On their continent.
Yeah. I'm going to have to head off. I have another meeting coming up.
But that's okay, Morag. So what time did you actually, well, no, you started at 8 a.m. Brisbane time.
Yes, yeah.
So I thought we were 3 hours ahead.
You
So
must
maybe because of the stopping of daylight saving, we're only 2 hours ahead.
maybe. Yeah.
Yes, I'll double check.
About 50 minutes into our session, I think. So
Okay. That's what I need to, yeah, that would be about right.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I did catch a bit of it, and it's lovely to talk to you. And
I'll send you the link to the recording, because I sort of had pictures and it's sort of a bit of a report of what's happened where we've gone. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks for coming along.
Bye.
Barb, is there any last things that you wanted to say before we closed?
Yeah, I think you just have to be very cautious about milk, especially if people are then tempted to put it in bottles, because bottles really, really kill babies where you haven't got extremely good hygiene.
Yeah.
And what they found in Papua New Guinea, in particular, they showed quite clearly that if you feed up the mother, you know, if women don't have that much milk, it's more of a Western world problem. But if you feed up the mother really well, then you can increase her production.
Yeah, that would be. But even hemp milk for the mothers would be a possible addition to the diet that might be affordable for them.
Sure, I'm not saying that hemp milk is a bad thing, but I think you have to be very careful how you introduce it.
Yeah, because who knows if they even have refrigeration as well as whether the hemp milk, of course, would be digestible by babies.
Yeah. So I think, you know, like even just the addition of having the hemp seeds that could be added into meals would be additional protein, which would help the mothers, I think, a lot. Yeah. Yeah, really good point. Thanks, Barb. That's always good to, I know you've got the medical background, so it's always good to keep that in mind. And I there is no way that the hygiene would be suitable, I think, to in many of those places. Yeah.
The bottles wouldn't be an option.
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's been so great to have your input.
I'll head off now.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Morag.
Thanks, Barb. Bye.
Yeah, bye.